What's going on, y'all? You know what time it is? It is time for Elevated Vibes right here on IntellectualRadio.com. Now, everybody, I got a special host, not just guest, host for the day. It's the magnificent Marvin Mukanaka. I'm gonna get it, dog. I'm gonna get it. I got close to there before. Remember last?
It's been a while, right?
Right. So
practice makes perfect.
There you go.
So it's been a while.
There you go, man.
So you might as well have me on radio every week.
Hey, man. Hey, it's a chair for you, brother. You know it.
Okay.
All right.
Take it.
All right now.
Take it.
All right. Today, myself and the magnificent one, we are talking about the discrepancy in news coverage. All right. Now, if you all sitting there wonder, why is he talking about discrepancy and all that? I'm going to break it down for you. All right. Now, the purpose of the function of the news is broken up into 8 different sections: informing, educating, guiding, entertaining, interpreting, and forming opinions and spreading awareness and advertising. These functions are extremely helpful to, pretty much everybody. But yet, unfortunately, it seems those who wield power have manipulated these functions so that you, the regular citizen, can go about how they want you to go about. One of the most effective ways for them to accomplish this is controlling the coverage of stories that you may see, and that is if the story is aired or printed at all. Some of the recent examples of this is the tragedy of Jelani Day versus the tragedy of Gabby Petito. They were both tragedies. Let's keep it very real. Or even more, the assault on the Ukraine, which is about 30 days now, versus the assault on Palestine, or many clashes within the Central African Republic, Yemen, and a bunch of other places. Now, y'all, true information, and I want y'all to think about this. True information is one of the main roads to actual justice. And if you think about it, justice is in this country's mantra. Remember, it's liberty and justice for all. So why not fair news coverage? Now, brother, I want you to give me a couple thoughts real quick on that.
Yeah, well, you've broken it out really well.
Mm-hmm.
And I was listening carefully, and your opening statements, you talked about the purpose of news, which is incidentally my first item on my list.
All right.
When I was preparing myself, like, what really is the purpose of news?
Mm-hmm.
And I like you brought out 8 things that news is supposed to do, and one of those was education and entertainment. There's another one that I thought that was among my top 3.
Informing.
So informing, educating, and entertaining.
Right.
I like those 3. Those 3 would be my focus.
Yes.
Not that that's all I'm going to talk about, but those would be my main issue.
Mm-hmm.
So I like how you broke that down. And then you talked about how the discrepancy happens with the coverage of news more recently with the Ukraine as against Palestine and countries like Yemen and Central Africa and places like that. So my general take is, first of all, to agree with you. I guess our homework today is to find out why.
Right.
To break down why. Some of the why might be beyond anybody's control. Some of it is. So maybe we might have to make a choice. Do we focus on the aspect of news or mass media that is within our control, within everybody's control? So we just have to make a decision which direction we take. However, in general, it's unfortunate that news coverage is not fair.
Right. Because, I mean, the news is supposed to be objective, and
Yes.
it's supposed to, give everything that should be given to the people.
To the people, yeah.
Right. Since the people is supposed to have overall power. Yes, you have your kings, you have your government and all that,
Yeah, because
but
ideally, if informing information or news should be about informing the people. But go on.
no. I agree with
It should be
you.
about empowering the people.
Right, exactly. And
Yeah.
not, we're just going to give you a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Mhm.
And, one thing that I do remember some time ago, I'm just going to say that,
Mhm.
some time ago,
Yeah.
when I was in my studies for media and communications and so forth, the three main things that the news made sure that they put out was stuff dealing with money, dealing with violence, and sex.
Okay.
You
Wow.
know, those are the three. That's what we were taught. Which, if you really sit back and look at the news today, what are the main things that you hear about?
Yeah. Those are the three,
Those are the same three main
which
things.
is more like the movie industry.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's gone on to the ads as well,
Yeah, that's without a doubt.
unfortunately.
That is without a doubt. That's what sells.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, that takes off from what the news is supposed to
Should
be.
be about, yeah.
Right.
Should be about, yeah.
And it needs it needs a change. All right. It
Mhm.
needs a change. It needs to be restructured through the educational system as well. So you don't have um, more journalists coming up. Well, not only the journalists, but change the ways of the outlets as well. Because I've done some reading, some studying with that, and it was a poll. Let me find it real quick. It was a poll that was taking that revealed that the news coverage discrepancy is more the fault of the news outlet than the journalist. Now, if you think about it,
Mhm.
they work for this outlet, whatever outlet it is. They work for them, so they're going to say
Yeah.
what they want them to say.
So there's control.
Right. And so that needs to make some type of a change. I mean, if you have to find some of these outlets or whatever that you need that must be done, that should be done.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
it needs to, you need to put a scare
Yeah.
because some of these people that's up top at these outlets. All right. Now, one in particular that many times on this show we talk about, we how can I say, we pounce on them in a way. We talk about Fox News,
Okay.
and we all know who's on top of that, Rupert Murdoch,
Mhm.
and saying that he needs some sanctions. Some, I mean, if you're going to sanction
Some
countries,
revocations.
you're going to have to need to sanction this private guy
Mhm. Mhm.
who's spewing out this as they used to love to say, fake news.
Right.
Yeah. Your thoughts on that real quick, bro?
Yeah. I mean, I won't pick on one specific news outlet, but you just
Mhm.
mentioned it right there. And I agree 100% that there needs to be some replications or correctional measures towards the approach to reporting. A lot of the news that we hear from certain outlets is disturbing to say the least. I was so disturbed, and I just now, because you've mentioned, you brought that up.
Mhm.
One of the news items that has left me disturbed up until this day, months after it happened, like over a year, the insurrection. I mean, for someone to say that those people were not causing problems, they were tourists,
Yeah.
bro. I couldn't believe I was hearing that on the news outlet. I mean, he called them, they were tourists, they were peaceful people, they were tourists just taking a tour in the capital.
Yeah.
My jaw dropped. I went to bed with my jaw dropped.
Hmm.
I woke up with my jaw dropped. I could not believe that this was coming from a reputable news outlet.
Right. Well, their reputation has definitely been tarnished, but
I'm like,
unfortunately,
whoa.
though, unfortunately, they still get a say, and this is the problem that I feel that this outlet needs to have a blackout time or whatever that,
Some
yeah,
replications.
something
Hmm.
on where it would stop them from doing a lot of this.
Hmm.
Because even with we'll go with the situation in Ukraine, and it ties into what you were talking about with the insurrection.
Yeah.
All right. Um, they've been pumping out a lot of wrong information about that as well.
Yeah.
It's a lot of it has been on the side of Russia, which we all know that Russia is the aggressor. Well,
Right.
I'm going to say Putin because we all know it's not the full
It's
Russian
not all the
people,
Russians. Yeah. I
right?
mean, there's some Russians that were against it that were, protesting,
Right.
and they've been arrested. Yeah.
Yeah, they've been arrested. I mean, the one guy that Putin tried to assassinate, he just gave him another 9 years in jail.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
so again, though, something like this, it definitely they definitely need some re- um
Replications,
replications.
consequences. Yeah.
Yes, yes,
They need to be called to give an account for those actions.
right.
Yeah. So by and large, the situation is actually dire. Like you're saying, I think that all of us have come to a place of desperation now, where some form of control needs to come, some form of sanity needs to come in, because otherwise, the people that remain vulnerable to all of that is actually the people themselves, the listeners, those of us that listen to the news, the consumer,
Yes,
the one that becomes the victim in this whole show.
right.
So even as you talked about replications and consequences, I was thinking to myself, what can be done from a practical point of view. And a crazy thought hit me as you were talking. I was like, well, maybe somebody, I don't know if it's government or the Senate or the Commission for the Media or something, they need to start including maybe people on the ground, just ordinary citizens, to come up with their own stories, something that they want to report about, something that they want to talk about, and kind of commission them or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
That,
yes.
that's just a thought,
Yeah,
because
agreed.
the moment you said correction needs to come, this needs to be corrected,
Right.
immediately I began to think, what can be done, what practical things can be done. I don't know, but all I know is that something definitely needs to be done, in agreeing with you.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Now, I mean, we do have the FCC, which is supposed to, put a lid on a lot of this.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, many times the FCC they only goes to a certain point and then they stop. You know, and the feel is, what if they get more power? People fear that on certain points because then, you have to worry about censorship and what will the FCC censor you on,
Yeah.
you know,
Hmm.
and once they get the censoring, they get the censoring. But if you're going to keep spilling out this bad information, then like I said, something has to be done.
Right.
You know,
Right. So let me ask a question
go
here.
ahead.
Do you think that part of the problem is the freedoms in the country? Because, and then also, we have to think about the fact that things are not the same everywhere else. See what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So, because the problem we're talking about right now is an American problem.
Right,
You see what I'm saying?
right.
But that's not the case everywhere else. So, do you think
Because a
that,
lot more things are state ran.
right?
Right.
There you go. But also freedoms.
Yes.
Yeah, so, do you think it's the freedom is part of the problem, such as freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and just many other freedoms?
Well, I think some of the laws need to be rewritten
Okay,
or changed up to change with the
restructured.
yeah, the change with the time,
Hmm.
because you have certain things that were good at for that time,
Hmm.
and unfortunately, because people have a good way of finding loopholes,
Yeah.
you have to find you have to upgrade things. You have to
Okay.
give it an upgrade, and I think some of the things that are there, that is written statements and so forth, the bylaws and all that the FCC has for communication companies such as Fox.
Hmm.
They need to do something about that, because you go back, even when we had, which I like to call him, the orange cancer of a president that we had.
Hmm.
It was many times that he was inciting violence anyway,
Right.
and we all knew it.
Yeah.
And Fox was pumping it out.
Hmm.
Fox was one of the main players in that pumping it out.
Yeah.
And just like you said with the insurrection,
Hmm.
they were quick to say, oh, they were tourists and,
There was nothing bad happening there.
you know, a
Yeah,
man died.
yeah. Men died.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a
the,
result of that. Yeah,
the lady, I don't remember her name, she's the one that got shot in the neck,
yeah, hmm,
as a result of the insurrection,
yeah,
and you have these people within the government and so forth, that's trying to, like you said, change the whole narrative. No,
yeah,
those people need to feel the full brunt of the law.
yeah.
Because I know if I went outside and did something anywhere near that,
Hmm.
oh, I already know I'm probably getting 15 to 20 years.
Hmm. Yeah,
So we definitely got to look at that.
right.
Definitely.
Mhm.
Now I'm gonna throw something else at you. We're gonna jump off that just for a second. All right.
Right. Hmm.
Now, many say that the coverage of these news stories is due to social status and race.
Okay.
You know,
So let's talk about dealing with motives now.
yes,
Hmm.
yes. Now, example on some of that would be uh, with Jesse Smollett when it first came out.
Hmm.
Because they did spend a lot of time trying to figure out his case. And like I said before, with Jelani Day and Gabby Petito,
Yeah.
Petito, if I'm saying the name correctly,
Hmm.
do you feel, do you agree with them?
We'll agree with what
With
what specifically.
if the coverage discrepancy is because of social status and race.
I think it has a hand in it. Yeah,
Hmm.
I think it does have a hand in it, because, like you correctly broke out in the beginning. Um, because personally, the way I would bring it down to something much more. I think that every news outlet has motives. Okay, those motives drives their goals. All right, so even with those cases, they do play into race. Okay, because I think that the consumer of news also is motivated by what their own interests are. All right. So different races want to hear different things. You see what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
I think that the news outlets are partly controlled by that. They know that if we keep talking about this issue, which is about a black person, then we lose the audience of the white people,
Hmm.
or people of color, or Asians, or whatever it is. So that does factor into the whole problem of discrepancy. Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
How it factors in
Uh-huh.
is science, but it does factor in.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
How it factors in is deep science,
Yeah, I
but
can see that.
it definitely
I
has a large influence in it.
I
Yeah.
can see that, and I love to touch in this on the science of that. That's a good one. That's definitely a good one.
Yeah, because then you really have to break it down so well.
All right. All right. Now, let you all join the conversation. The number to call is 708-223-8953. Once again, that is 708-223-8953. Or you can hit us up on Facebook Live. All right. Now, another thing that was talked about, you have, just like we talked about, Fox and probably some of the others, where they'll just go off on their whole tangent of things and none of it's true. But if you remember back to like the electoral debates for most debates, you have these fact checkers.
Yeah.
So would it be a viable idea that, you know, like Fox, I hate to keep picking on them, but they're the first ones on my mind.
Right.
Should they have 24-hour fact checkers for everything that they talk about? You know,
Hmm. Yeah,
what do you think? Should
I
should there be
do.
something like that?
Yeah, because I think the idea of having fact checkers 24 hours,
Hmm.
for me, kind of agrees with my idea of including people in the community,
Yes.
to kind of choose or make known what news items they need covered. Okay. And I think that those would be fact checkers themselves. I think that if we developed a mechanism of feedback from members of the community
Mhm.
who actually tell us what they feel is true and not true, that in itself will be some kind of mechanism of fact checking.
Okay.
So the idea of having fact checkers, yes, absolutely. But I think making members of the community part of that checking system is mandatory.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. All
Because at
right.
the end of the day, we need to know how the consumer is being affected by the news.
True.
We need to know.
Right.
That has to be a part of the equation.
Because with everything that's out here, you have these consumers, and the consumers are the most important part.
They are. They are.
So
They are consumers.
right,
Because when you do
you
business,
need them.
yeah, because I mean, I worked in a hotel before, and I was told that the customer is always right.
Hmm.
Because
Even though they ain't always right,
there you
but
go. But you know what I'm saying?
right,
That's because you don't have business without them.
that's true.
You see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So news, what's news if there's no consumer?
Just a lot of empty words.
And then if you don't know how the news is affecting the people, then what's the point? What's driving that business? You see, I like the fact that we've already established that news outlets are driven by financial interests. Okay,
Hmm.
so and that kind of just changes the whole scenario of motives, goals, and what you want to achieve as a news outlet.
Okay.
Because basically, you just go any direction as long as the money is coming in.
Yeah,
You see what I'm
I
saying?
agree.
And that
I
in itself
totally
creates
agree.
the discrepancy.
I totally agree. Yes, yes,
You
yes.
see? So again, that would bring us to the need for a review of ratings.
Mm.
Should news outlets receive ratings for simply the fact that people are listening to them? You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Or should news outlets receive ratings because of the quality of what the consumer is getting from them?
And then also, now that you mentioned the thing with ratings,
Yeah.
because I think it's called the Nielsen ratings or so forth,
Mhm.
where they do the ratings for television and I think radio as well.
Yeah.
Um, I do believe that they should have more of a play of things, give them more power to get to more people out there. Because if I remember correctly on how that whole Nielsen thing works, all right, they pick and choose certain people, certain demographic, and it's only a selected few.
Mhm.
And they need, in my book, give them more power, more money, so that they can pick a lot more people,
Yeah.
so you can get a true feel of what the people think. Because if you're serving a crowd of 5 million, but only 50,000 is doing the ratings, that's still not that good.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
I mean, it's something, but you need a lot more concrete evidence
Yes.
than that.
Mhm.
So I definitely agree with you on the
Yes.
rating
So
thing.
on the ratings, so the whole idea of the system of ratings needs review.
Yes,
Because what's the idea? What's the purpose of ratings?
yes,
Because ratings actually sometimes deceive.
and that's what I mean. Because
Yeah.
if you're not getting a good amount of the public,
Objectivity.
right?
Mhm.
You're not getting a good amount of it.
And to be honest, let's be honest here. Sometimes people listen to a certain news outlet or news network
Yes,
because they're simply curious,
true,
not because they are its listeners,
right, right. But they are
but
they
just
are
because they're curious.
simply curious, because a lot of times they're listening to, trying to figure out what the other side thinks.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And then also, sometimes it's just a follow up.
True.
Like maybe they said something outrageous
Hmm.
that everybody knows is bogus, is fake news,
Right.
but they listen to it the next time to kind of just catch up to see what are they saying about it now.
Hmm.
But they're not really a part of the base.
Agreed.
You see what I'm saying?
Agreed. But unfortunately, those will be the ones that the Nielsen company, if I'm correct in the company,
Mhm.
I could be wrong.
Yeah.
And if I am, y'all, please call up and correct the brother on that. But anyhow, though, they could be the ones that they're contacting. So
Yeah.
they're not getting the right information at
True.
all.
Yeah. Hmm.
Because this person's motive or intent of watching that is not objectivity.
Right. And then also, there's another reason for this discrepancy, especially in the American setting.
Hmm.
Okay. Because you do have so much division going on right now. Okay. And so the powers that be that are divided against each other have media representation.
Yes.
You see, and that's a major thrust of the discrepancy,
Mm, okay.
because you've got this power that's divided against each other. All right. Okay. You've got left and right, and they have made media representation.
Hmm.
And so it doesn't matter what happens, they will not move their goalposts.
Right. They're gonna stay
They'll
holding
stay.
to. They're gonna stick to their guns.
They'll, it's about allegiance.
Yes. Yes.
You see what I'm saying? So that's another thing that needs to be looked at. Because I was even thinking, how do you switch those two? Is it possible to have a situation where the left and the right have left wing media supporting the right wing?
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
For the sake of having balance.
Yeah.
Because one of the roles of the media or reporters is to hold leaders or to hold people accountable.
Agreed.
And you can't hold people accountable if you agree with everything they say.
Right. You can't be a yes man all the
Do
time.
you see what I'm saying? So
That's
you
not
you,
gonna
you
help.
can't pledge your allegiance to them
Mm-hmm.
and at the same time hold them accountable.
True.
You see what I'm saying? So that also needs review. But then how do you do that?
All right. All right. Well, y'all, look, we're gonna go to a quick musical break, and we'll be right back. We are talking about news discrepancy. This is Elevated Vibes on IntellectualRadio.com. All right, this is Elevated Vibes, and we are back. We are back. We are back. Let me remind you, if you want to join the conversation, the number is 708-223-8953. Once again, that is 708-223-8953. Today, we are talking about the discrepancy within news coverage. All right, it's a real thing, y'all. Believe it. Believe it. Believe it. Believe it. All right. Now,
It's a war.
yeah.
It's a war, right?
Yeah, and we got to see every aspect of it, because if you don't, that's how they get you. That's how they get you. So, hey, another thing, you know, all this used to be part of what they call the gatekeeping process. All right, where um you will have this person or the group of people who would say, okay, this story is going to go out, we're going to give this amount of time, and so forth. You know,
Mm.
even though it is still there, but because you have social media out there now, and that it goes on real strong, all right, that position has come into, almost in a doubt status. Like, why is it there? So do you feel that these news stations and so forth should they keep gatekeepers, or should they just go for whatever story that comes across the board?
I think the answer lies in community involvement. Like I said earlier on,
Hmm.
I will emphasize a way to get community involved. There has to be rapid response, intense response with the consumer, right? I think that we know in marketing that people that manufacture products
Hmm.
have something that they do with the consumer where they check to see what the people think about the product and things like that. So there's a back and forth, there's a feedback where they get information regarding this, satisfaction with the product. And the same thing has to come to media.
Okay.
There has to be that intense interaction, relationship, if you want to call it that,
Hmm.
so that the people that run the media or that are involved in media understand how exactly the consumer is taking the information and the effect that it's having. That relationship has to be there.
Agreed.
So then that would determine what the gatekeepers do.
Hmm. Preach it.
Then
Preach it, bro.
that's easy
Right.
because then the gatekeepers know what they need to do.
Right. Right.
So when you talk about immigration, for example,
Hmm.
the people that work in immigration, they do their work on the ground. They work with people on the ground. They work with community. They get feedback. They know what cases are going on and what's going wrong, and who came in without a visa and whose visa expired and things like that. They have all of that information. It's a relationship with the consumer, right?
Right.
So that's what determines the laws that they make. That's what determines how many people they let in, how many people they deport, how many people they round up, and things like that. The same thing has to apply in media.
Agreed.
Then the gatekeepers will know how to do their job.
All right. Hey, media outlets, are you listening? Are you listening? This man is giving gems. All y'all got to do is pick it up.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, what's the job of a gatekeeper if they're letting anything come in?
True.
Then you don't need the gatekeepers.
Right. And that's the thing.
You see, so they have to
Why you
have
still
they
there?
have to have a system, a standard of what they let in and what they don't let in. You see
Agreed.
what I'm saying? So yeah, checks and balances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All within the American system. Well, they say.
Yes.
But that's a whole nother topic.
Hmm.
Anyhow,
Yeah.
you know, um, speaking with social media and so forth, since social media is out there and it's so big, and everybody listens a lot to either what's on Facebook or what's on Twitter, depends on which one you mess with.
And
And
Instagram.
oh yeah,
And Instagram.
Instagram, and then
There's lots of others,
TikTok.
but
Yeah, but
those those are
I
those
was
are the
just
those are three I
I was
know.
just yeah, and I was just gonna go with the biggest two. You
Right.
know,
Yeah. Mm.
but should they Twitter and Facebook come out with their own news programs?
Okay. So you've
I
got.
mean, literally just on there. Uh, this block, if you follow it, this is Facebook news or this is Twitter news.
That's interesting because now I think we're getting closer to what we need to do with the consumer,
Hmm.
so we can get the consumer through social media. So there's already one way there. So I think social media can help a lot. Can
Hmm.
help a lot because when you think about it, social media also contributes to the distortion of information.
Yes, yes, it definitely
It
does.
does. I mean, we don't have time to talk about how it does that, but social media does add to the distortion of information, and also it also provides a bypass from media streams.
Hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So I think media will hold back certain things that people should not hear, but social media will bypass that and let
Right,
people
they're gonna let it
and let
out.
people hear it.
Right, they're gonna let it out, and
Yeah, because like some these days I get a lot of notices on Twitter
hmm
about news before I get it from from the sources that I normally like to get it from.
that's what I'm saying. See how
So
you're
that's
you're
the
getting
bypass
that
I'm talking about.
right. So why don't they just come up with their own news channel
Right.
through Twitter, Facebook, whatever?
And then they can work. I guess they can work in line or in association with the news outlets. Maybe.
Maybe
Yeah.
they may put them out of business, but hey,
Oh. I forgot that part.
You
Yeah,
never know.
yeah. Because the thing is, I'm looking at my mind. I guess is focused on control. So that's why I suggested that. But then there's also the business side of things. Yeah.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Now, as I was talking about a little bit earlier about, what's being taught in the schools to up and coming journalists, you
Okay.
know,
Hmm.
should they be taught more on how to push out the right thing when they know, you have to, how can I say, mold them in a way that needed to be molded to go back to, you know, bringing out the complete truth about things. Like you want to go old school, the Walter Conkrights, I can't even say his name correctly,
Hmm. Yeah.
Peter Jennings and whoever else, these, they need to be restructured because and I'm picking on Fox News again, but I can't think of the guy's name, but he's a total individual, and you could replace that word with many other words that you could think of.
Mm.
Um, Tucker Carlson, yeah,
Okay.
you know, we don't need no more of those out here,
Hmm.
and so it starts with the education,
Yeah.
you know.
So I was going to ask you. Sorry to interrupt you, but
Yeah, no, you're
I hope
fine.
you
Go
hope you
ahead.
don't lose that thought.
No, no,
I
go
was
ahead.
going to ask, when you talk about certain individuals that are so resilient and so dedicated to their destructive cause,
Mm-hmm.
my question would be, what is it that brings them to that point? Because you were asking
Ah,
this question about how people should be trained in the media institutions.
yes,
You know what I'm saying?
yes,
So
yes,
I
yes,
think it
yes.
relates to that because I'm worried about people that are so adamant in their destructive devices,
Mm-hmm.
in letting out information that is so poisonous.
Yes,
So, because it connects to the question you're asking, how should we train people in the media institutions? And which also touches on moral standards or moral ethics,
yes,
because we're dealing with a society here that has lost values as well. So
yes.
that factors into the equation as well.
Right, and we all know that the media feeds parts of society,
Hmm.
whether we like it or not. It
Yeah.
does.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know.
Because there's also a possibility that media institutions pick on certain individuals that have certain traits or a certain character, like they're just stubborn, they're just distractive,
Hmm.
and they pick them up and they're like the pawns of the media outlet.
Right, and that's why I was talking about. They need to be fined on a lot of things. But go ahead.
There you go. So in looking at the individuals and then the individual training in college and university, what is it that we need to find out? What is it that makes these people so staunch
Hmm.
in their belief system?
Mm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes,
So there needs to be a vetting of that. There needs to be an examination of that.
yes,
And so when you talk about how people should be trained in college and university, I think that should be a part of like a background check of the people that are trained in there. For example, when you join the military, for example,
right,
there's certain requirements.
right,
There's certain requirements. And your allegiance is one of those requirements.
right.
You see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So the same thing should apply to, because it looks like with journalism and mass communication and news, it's like anybody can just go in there and just train
Yeah,
and go out there and just talk.
right. As long as you talk long enough and loud enough and
There you go.
controversial enough,
So
all of a
yeah,
sudden people are starting to listen.
yes, you see what I'm saying. So that's another thing that needs to be considered.
Yes.
But my biggest question is, what is it that makes people like that so staunch, so bold, when they know they're just being destructive?
That's true. That's true. And then you talked about vetting. All right.
Yeah.
Now, just off the top of your head, you know, you would you would need a group to do it. How would you pick uh the members of this group to vet, the news media and so forth? How would you pick them? What would you go by gender, cultural differences or whatever that you would pick the people in this group to vet these journalists, newscasters, any of the sort?
I don't know. Off my head, I'll just say, like, it's something that should be part of the clearance for these journalists. I
Hmm.
mean, these journalists have to be licensed after all,
Right.
right?
Yes.
So it's something that should be a part of their licensing system. For example, when we go and get a driver's license,
Hmm.
they test your eyesight.
Yes.
You say it's not just about being able to turn the steering
Take
wheel.
it from a man with glasses who still can't see. Yes, they test your eyesight.
You see what I'm saying? So it's not just a question of you being able to turn the steering wheel.
Hmm.
It's not just a question of you being able to put your foot on the gas.
True.
It's much more than that. It's how well you see, how well you hear. You see what I'm saying? How sensitive you are to your environment when you're driving. They test those things.
Yes.
So with journalists, you can't just look at the ability to write and talk.
Hmm.
It has to go beyond that. What do they stand for? You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's a lot of ways that we can test these things. I mean, think about when you talk about just natural life. For
Yes.
example, somebody wants to date your daughter. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So
You
you're
take-
going to test them. You're going to test them.
You're going to
gonna
test them.
them.
You will
Right.
test them.
Yes.
You take them out for dinner. You watch how they eat.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. How they interact
How
with
they interact
other
with
people.
You know what I'm saying? How they interact with the environment. It's a lot of things that you look at.
Mhm.
It's not just that he's a man. He's got a job.
Hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Agreed.
So it's the simple little things of life, and I think that's what those are some of the things that are left out in the whole sphere of journalism.
Okay.
Simple little things. It's simple. There's some things in life, my brother, that are just simple.
Yeah.
I think we complicate them when we try and make them mechanical,
Hmm.
try and make it an issue of training,
Yes.
but it's just the natural things of life. How do people interact? You see what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes.
You can gauge people's motives, but just how they interact with people.
Yes.
You see?
Agreed.
And so
Agreed.
the issue we have here with the discrepancy of news coverage is it boils down to things like motives.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Now touching on motives. Oh yeah. I'm touching on motives.
Yeah.
All right. You get these,
And biases as well.
Yes. You
by the way.
get these radical politicians
Mhm.
that will take these news stories, twist them up, tear them up, and everything that they can
Yeah.
to turn around and put it in their favor.
Yeah.
Should these politicians, even though they know they are lying and they are misguiding the people, should they not be fined as well?
No, I mean, look, it's straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
They should be.
Right. Right.
Okay. But again, we have this problem of division. Okay. So take you back to the example of the last administration.
Yes.
Here's a person that clearly showed you who he was.
Yeah. Blatantly.
Clearly.
Yeah.
He put it out there. He didn't make it a private issue.
Right.
He put it in front of you.
Mhm.
This is who I am. He told you.
Yeah.
But still people went and chose him. You
Yeah.
see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that makes it difficult to make those leaders accountable.
Mm.
You see,
Mhm.
which is why the community involvement is important.
Agreed.
Because in involving the community, members of the community and society, you also make them accountable. You see
Absolutely
what I'm
true.
saying? So you look at what happened with the previous administration and all of the confusion that came. Now there has to be a way of getting back to the people. See, we told you.
Yes.
Now you see what problem we have.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? There has to be that follow up and follow through. So accountability has to be at the top and at the bottom. So even when you say should they not be held accountable, they should be. But the people at the grassroots should also be held accountable.
And see, the thing is, we got to figure out a way to wake up these people at these grassroots to use the power that they have. Because a lot of
The power
time,
of the ballot,
yeah,
which is one of them.
yeah,
Yeah.
But a lot of times, you have some that just won't even take the time to go to the ballots. So now you got to find out another way to wake them up, to push them, to hold these people accountable. Because, like you said, he was blatant with how he was.
Yeah.
I mean, if I
Didn't hide anything.
No, and if I remember correctly, and anybody, please, if I'm wrong,
Mhm.
call me on it. But if I'm correct, he said that he can go out in the middle of the street, shoot somebody,
That's what I mean.
yeah, and y'all will still make him president.
Yeah,
Which,
which they did.
yeah, he flat out said
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So it's that boldness that worries me.
Hmm.
You see, it's that kind of boldness that has seeped even into journalism,
Yes,
and it affects the discrepancy of the reporting,
yes,
of the news coverage, and those people that do that, that tag the line, even know that they're unstoppable. They brag about it because the people won't make them accountable.
wow,
You see, you get
yeah.
and I'm sticking to this point. What is it that makes these people so bold? What is it?
It's the people behind them. In my book, it's the people behind them and the ones in front of them that want to be ignorant to the truth. You know,
Okay. Mhm.
if
Is it ignorance or denial of the truth?
a little bit of both.
Okay.
I can agree that in some parts it's denial. So
Denial of the truth.
yeah, yeah,
In most part, in most cases, I think it's the denial of the truth.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to deny that.
True. Mhm. Okay.
But I think, like, to answer your question, that's what it is. That's what makes them so emboldened, and then it turns around and they embolden the others that are,
Mhm.
you know, ignorant and denial of the truth, and the ones behind them really pulling the strings.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and this has to be called out by those who see it. It has to be pushed out there on however it has to be. You know, um, and that's why I mentioned the question of Facebook or Twitter
Social
having their
media.
own news,
Mhm.
you know, to get to get those out there who are really going to push the truth and are not blocked by the gatekeepers that are in the standard news places.
Yeah.
Because even before, as I call them, the orange cancer, there was a man who became president because of that news station claimed him to be president. This was years ago, and hopefully y'all know who I'm talking about. They claimed him to be president when the polls were not over.
Mhm.
But then when the court case came, Florida pushed us. Excuse me, I shouldn't have said that. But
No, you shouldn't have said that.
Florida, well, again, that state kept pushing that out, that this person won, and more people voted in that route when the polls were not closed.
Hmm.
So there you go.
Yeah.
I, Go ahead.
So my emphasis is on individuals.
Hmm.
Yeah. My emphasis still falls back on individuals.
Yes.
Which follows would there would have to be a follow through because now here we're talking about journalists,
Hmm.
okay? Because these are peddlers of information. All right. Now, in general, all of us as individuals, members of the community, we're peddlers of information. All right. So the vetting again becomes crucial. What do these people stand for? What are their inclinations? What are their motives? What are their biases? I mean, I've always had to say that biases are not a bad thing. It all just depends on how you execute those biases.
Hmm. I
Bi-
like that.
Biases are not
I,
a bad thing.
that's how you execute those
It's how you
biases.
execute the biases because all of us have biases.
That's absolutely
All
true.
right. Anybody who has kids thinks his kids are the best kids in the world.
Right.
It's a bias.
Right. But
You
as a
know,
parent, you should feel that way.
that, you know what I'm saying? So it's a bias.
Right.
But if you go out there and say all of the kids are dumb, but then the execution of your bias is not healthy. You get my point. So
Hmm.
biases are not a bad thing because biases are a part of our nature.
Hmm.
They are part of our culture. You get the point.
Hmm.
People that run Chinese restaurants will market Chinese food as the best food around.
Right.
It's a bias. There's
Right.
nothing wrong with it.
Right.
But if you go out there and say, don't eat Mexican food, it's this and that, then
Hmm.
the execution of that bias becomes a problem.
Agreed.
Women have biases.
Hmm.
They will tell you women are this and that and this. It's a bias. It's okay. It's healthy.
Hmm.
So biases are healthy,
Hmm.
but how we execute those biases. So these media outlets have biases, and I assume that those biases are healthy, but the execution of them
Okay.
It's what we say
Hmm.
out of those biases.
All right.
It's how we transmit news out of those biases.
All right.
That's what becomes problematic.
Okay.
And that's what creates the discrepancies.
All right. Cool. 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 And just to read off, because we had a couple of comments on Facebook.
Mhm.
All right. It is actually from one of the colleagues here, at Elevated Vibes, the boss man, Mike B.
Mhm.
He was stating that he agreed that we need more independent news outlets,
Okay.
and he was also saying that the ballot is not enough when they are gerrymandering to stay in power,
Okay.
which, yeah, he has a point, you know, and that's why I kind of touched on the ballot that it needs to be a little bit more than that, but we can also use the power of money. We need to put a lot of time to touch on his what he was talking about with the independent news media outlets and then politics and so forth. Use the power of money and putting our money towards, let's just say, if it is an independent news outlet, advertising or whatever, whoever's advertising there, or give a donation to that. It might be something small, but you're helping this independent news outlet grow. If a million of us give an independent news outlet $10 each,
Mhm.
now it ain't that small no more.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
it's got that money back, and so now here comes that power. Now it can go up against the big boys, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, and so forth. So it makes sense. Definitely makes sense. And then as he was speaking about with gerrymandering, we have to take those politicians to task that uses gerrymandering, as a weapon, because still, again, they work for us. We are the people, and these politicians technically work for us. That's what they do,
Mhm. Yeah.
so we are running into that time. I did not even realize it,
Yeah.
but everyone, let's keep this conversation going. Let's keep it going because this change is needed. It should have happened a long time ago, and it is needed. So let's keep the conversation going. You guys can always hit us up, even after the show. You can email us, and we could push towards sending things. See any politicians that maybe have something to do with this,
Yeah.
um, any of that sort, because together we are very powerful. We are
Yes.
extremely
Yeah, and I
powerful.
think you need to emphasize that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's something we definitely need to do. And if y'all want to do it, we are down. Elevated Vibes has your back. We may be a little small, so it may be a little bit way back, but still, we got your back, and we will, you know, join the crusade.
Yeah.
You know. So, as I always say, let's all strive not to be famous amongst men. Let's strive to be famous amongst those of a higher level. Any last words, brother?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just reflecting on the fact that this is quite a wide subject.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing, but also its urgency.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's wide, but it's urgent. So even as you, in your closing remarks, as you talked about, togetherness, that together we're not small. I think that's really probably the biggest thing that could happen. This unison of movement, agreement, and unity in terms of what needs to be done with media. That's probably the change that needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the change that needs to happen.
Okay.
Yeah, then everything else will fall in line.
All right.
Yeah, because I mean, when there's no togetherness, things are just scattered all over.
Yes.
Uh, you know,
And a lot of chaos and confusion.
absolutely. So that coming together of people,
Mm-hmm.
agreeing on what needs to be done, and
Mm-hmm.
moving together in sync, I think is probably the biggest thing that needs to happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, without a
Mhm.
doubt. So this is Elevated Vibes for this week. Next week we will have another special guest unless things change. It's a gentleman running for Congress. His name is Junaid Ahmed. So hopefully, God willing, he'll be here next week. This is Elevated Vibes. Peace.